I'm David Gill, I'm the Parks and Recreation Director. Thank you for coming. Today we're here to talk about the 2024 project that was approved to add athletic field lights here at Keach Park. I got 15 PowerPoint slides. It's going to go quick, and then it's open questions to figure out the good, the bad, and the ugly about this proposed light. Okay? Really happy. We have the new mayor. We have several new city councilors here. We have the H&L Turner Group, who is an in-town group helping us design. And then we have a representative from Musco Lighting. They do sports lighting, but they also do airport lighting, track lighting, anything lighting. So, in case this is the first time you've been to a public meeting, it's really laid back. We'll go through the slides. If you have questions, I'll pause at the beginning, at the end of the slide, and just ask the question. But we will have more of a robust conversation towards the end, so if you have questions. I think everybody's seen this. Quite a few of the neighbors, their butters are here, which are good. This is the FY CIP, there's REITs. I don't need to read it, everybody. Some of you guys already have a copy of it. But it's to get the public input, the butters, the leagues, golf course, big golf course. Woo, that's like the talk there. The Recreation Park Advisory Board and the Airport Advisory Board to buy in, to look at it, to answer questions. And then ultimately at the end, we go back to City Council with a preferred plan, an operation plan, and then City Council can decide if we move forward. Real quickly, we've done the introductions, Turner Group, Musco, and the City Councilors. This PowerPoint slide presentation will be online tomorrow, so if you don't catch everything, we'll put it online. Quick history of the park. Some of the longtime residents, you might have longer history than I do. Park amenity and users, the history of the request for lights. We'll have a conversation about the athletic lights as proposed. Questions and input, and then next steps. Real quickly, the city established the park in 1933. The city actually acquired some land in the late 20s, but didn't officially make it a park until 1933. It's officially 10.78 acres. It is protected by land and water conservation funds. The city is really good about getting grant funds for various projects. So it is protected. One of the good things about that, and I think, it always has to be a public park. So federal dollars come with some strings, but that's a good thing. I just went back 20 years or so, some of the recent investments. 2004, the city with some federal dollars did a complete renovation of the park. All ball fields with irrigation. This was at the time the first park with in-ground irrigation. The only other park that has it now is White Park. New courts, new basketball courts, new parking lot, fencing allowed along Loudon Road. We have a formal entrance over by the playground. We added a crosswalk for safe access to the park. 2018, the pool was fully renovated. If you go back to the mid-90s, the pool was renovated in the mid-90s, and you go back about 20 years, the city's really good about renovating our pools. Basketball and tennis courts repainted. 2019, we added a half-mile walking track. That was part of the conversation with the Recreation Park Advisory Board and City Council when we opened this facility. We have a lot of seniors coming in to walk, but they wanted to walk when it was nice outside, so we added that. 2023, the soccer mini pitch was added, and the outdoor court lights are now LED. All the city's outdoor basketball, tennis courts are LED now, which is great. Like I said, Keach Park is just over 10 acres. This is the park itself. Interesting to note for anybody who's new, where our Parks and Rec offices are, the community center, and all that area down south of Canterbury Road, that used to be part of the school district. So when the city paid $1 for the old Dame School, I think we overpaid, because we lived in here for a couple of years during that process, and it was a good old building. And then the lower two right lots, 28 and 63, the city purchased that. It was a home. I think it was a neighborhood catch we let them use for a while, and we purchased those 2 lots for anticipated additional parking needs when the city was going to build the community center. So the green section is actually the park. This is the section that's protected by LWCF funds. And yes, for your residents on Newton Ave, those nice pine trees are supposed to be part of the park. As you guys know. Real quickly, the aerial, that's just, I kept the lines in there, but the park is all city property, but the park itself is what's in the middle. There's a Little League field, softball field, basketball court, gazebo. Like most of the fields in Concord, the softball field and the Little League field are multi-purpose. They're seasonal in the sense that in the spring, the Little League field and the softball field are Little League and softball. And then mid-August, when we turn into the fall sports season, outfields of those locations have become soccer fields. So it's multi-purpose. When you look at the lower left, and it says spring and summer, the Little League field and the softball field are solely softball and Little League. The youth soccer field we added in 2015, and I have a map of that we just added going across an existing field. And then the fall, we have 2 Division III soccer fields with a soccer practice area. 2023, and this information is online also. This is the organized park and field users. So these are the ones that we've issued permits to. So it's not neighborhood kids coming in to play. It's not people are going to use the gazebo unless they rented space. Spring is mostly Concord Little League, Northeast softball, Parks and Rec. Soccer leagues a couple afternoons a week, and then on Saturdays. Obviously, summertime, there's more activities, and school's out. And then in the fall, it's Parks and Rec leagues, the library. We do have a couple of large special events here. We do the Multicultural Festival here now, past couple of years, and then Columbus, Seacoast Express Soccer. We're one of their host sites for their Columbus Day soccer tournament. And they have about 150 teams from all over New England. They use this location, we use Memorial Field, and a couple other fields, as well as the Seacoast and everything. So, a couple pictures from last year's events. The meat and potatoes of the conversation. You guys are already done listening to me, right? History of the requests, 2017. It was May of 2017, Change for Concord, and the new organizer here is Fisto, he's here. But Change for Concord presented City Council a petition to requesting that athletic field lights be added to Keach Park. That was during the budget presentation, so the budget was always presented. City Council received the petition, and then in June, City Council, before they adopt the budget, can make some adjustments and some additions. They did move and add the lights as a 2020 project. So they anticipated a couple years out, the conversation to come in for the lights. As everybody knows, 2020 was an interesting year for a couple years for COVID. Lots of decisions were made, it got pushed out. And then last year, Change for Concord and the Sierra Club and others came back and said, hey, it's been too long, how do we get the lights back into the budget? So City Council then, last June, added it as a project, funded it for one soccer field. So here we are. Brief history. Any questions so far before I continue? Good. So our goal over the next couple of meetings, and when I say couple of meetings, we still have to go to the airport advisory, the recreation park advisory, and probably have another meeting, is pole locations. We got to look at the light concerns. A lot of the park abutters are here right now. Light pollution is going to be a question. We also have to look at the electrical needs. These are 60 to 70 foot light towers. That's why we hired the Turner Group to come in and make sure we can get the power that we need to run the lights. We'll show you the diagrams, but the park has irrigation. So obviously when you run power poles, we're going to break the irrigation. We've got to put underground electrical in. There's going to be damage to the existing location and then we have to repair it, then we have to repair the irrigation. Impact to wildlife. We're very fortunate to have the Merlin falcon is here and nest here every year. And these trees out here, it is not an endangered species. But we do have to look at if adding athletic field lights is going to impact any of the wildlife. And it's mostly the nesting birds that we're going to look into. And obviously the airport, we are in the flight plan. If you ever hear almost any time of the day, the planes do land over, it seems like they come right over that side of the park all the way in, depending on the wind, so we have to get their review. We also have to look at the scheduling of the field. If the lights go in, obviously there's more use. Who's using it? How do we turn the lights on and off? Memorial Field, Steve's here, he's in charge of the Sunset League. He knows we have to, the lights at Memorial Field, we have to have somebody physically there on and off and on and off. 21st century lights can be programmed differently, which is good. We do have additional maintenance costs for a grass field. We aerate it and we seed it twice a year. That keeps it good grass. If we're using it longer, we probably have to do those applications more to make sure we don't lose the turf, because then it becomes a mud bowl. Obviously, there's a cost of the operation. Lights are going to cost something. We have the experts here to help us define what that hourly cost is. Right now, the city practice is to have the leagues and organizers who use the lights pay for the lights. We're going to go down the path of that's what we're going to assume this will happen. However, that's a larger conversation, is there will be new costs that we have to figure out. And obviously parking and noise considerations. The park technically is open till 11 o'clock at night. Right now between 9 and 11 in the summertime, it's probably more use. In this fall and this spring, when it gets colder and it's darker, there's probably less use, as it is right now. As soon as we add athletic lights, obviously the use can increase. So we have to look at the abutters' concerns. We have to also look at noise ordinances and how do we handle that increased use for the neighborhood. As we're thinking lights and we're thinking use, typically the athletic fields open mid-April. Sometimes it's late April, sometimes it's early April. For the sake of conversation, we look at April 15th to November 1st is when the athletic fields are open. We do close the fields when it's too wet, there's frost on the ground, it's too muddy. We close the fields for overuse. Wear and tear. And then I just looked ahead and looked at the sunset times, because part of this is, the request from 2017 from Change for Concord and also last spring is making sure we have a longer use of the park that's lit and it can be enjoyed in a safe environment. So obviously May, June, July, we're at that 8 to 8:30 time frame. The fall gets darker sooner. So obviously, in October, if it's the sun setting at 6:30 and we want to keep the park open to 11, that's 4 hours of potential use the lights would have. Versus in July, it might be 2 hours. So just from as we're thinking facility plans and facility use, especially for the abutters, that could change a little bit. I did not do anything in April, and I did not do anything in December. Typically, the fields are closed. Yes, can you walk on the fields right now and you'll sink? Yes, but you'll do a lot of damage. We don't schedule the fields in the wintertime, so I didn't include those timelines. I'm almost done talking. Maybe I can give it to Doug and Bill in a minute. We've been running youth soccer up here in the spring since about 2006, which is right after the park was renovated in 2004. In 2015, we added the short soccer field. Due to, in part, the growing interest in soccer, our leagues, we have about 300, 350 kids in our spring program. But it's also the community. More and more people want the soccer field. So we recognize the Recreation Park Advisory Board. Said, hey, we want to do this. You guys are supportive. The answer was yes. That one field that goes this way, typically we close it. We take the goals away. That middle to the end of July, we put them back in again. In mid-August, that's after we aerate and we seed. The field is still available. We just don't have the goals there because that has extra wear and tear in the goal areas. So we're trying to get the grass field ready for the fall season. So if you look at this, the red box is basically the traditional fall soccer field that we have. We've been doing that, I think, since the 70s. The blue box is the diagonal. That's the one we added in 2015. And then we just changed the orientation. So we changed the wear patterns on the grass field over. So it just helps with the wear and tear. So I can keep on talking, or you guys can come up.
Keep going, you're doing good.
Turner Group, obviously they're here to help with the design, because we have to get through the design phase and we have to get through what's possible, what's going to look like. This is the yellow dots are where the poles would be, and that would cover both of our soccer fields. So the regular soccer field in the fall, as well as the spring and early one. And obviously, as you can see, those yellow dots, every yellow dot has to be connected by underground utilities, which is going to dig up the park for a while. It's also going to break all the irrigation that we have on the field. Can you turn this one? We have a better diagram of this. Oh.
Sorry, I was just trying to make it big.
So one of the questions all the abutters I'm anticipating is having is, what is the light pollution? What does that mean for me as a neighborhood? Musco Lighting, Alan is here. This is his expertise. This is his light analysis. These lights are not the field lights you have at Memorial Field that kind of sprawl 300 feet in every direction. Soccer field's in the middle. Kind of the 4 dots around it is where the poles are going to be. If you look in the red where it says 0, there is no light pollution going past where those lines are. So when you're sitting in your yard, is it going to be bright on the field, but you'll be able to walk almost where the red lines is in the dark. So these are athletic field lights that can be specifically down for the athletic field. Alan, is there a more technical way to say that?
No, this is light spill, so I could take a light meter, go out there at these spots, sit it down and get a light reading. And like he said, the spill dissipates as you get to those zero levels. To give you an idea, a full moon is about 0.1 foot candles of light.
So over there, you're 0.
Correct.
So, as comparison, there's not Memorial Field lights. We picked this field and this location because it is away from any of the abutters on the south side of the property. It's closer to Loudon Road, and it doesn't affect the Little League field or the softball field's use in the spring if the lights are on in the evening. It's just affecting the soccer field. It's not extending the lights on the softball or Little League field. It's not getting those fields lit. They're also the fields closest to the park abutters. So it's just this field right here.
David, so that's Loudon Road there on the left?
Yep, Loudon Road's here on the left. Community Center, excuse me, on the top. And then the Newton Ave and the basketball and the pool will be on the bottom end. I'm gonna have the park abutters questions. Good, bad, and different.
Parking,
Yep.
noise, trash, parking, chaos at the end of the street, every
Speed
night of the
racing.
week, every night of the week.
Speeding.
And speeding, it goes on year round, how are you gonna monitor that, what's gonna happen there?
That's a couple slides for that. I don't have the answer for that yet, that's why we're here having the conversation.
Can I add one thing to it?
Absolutely.
I saw the, what you did for the facilities. I don't see a traffic flow, so.
Okay?
And with the conditions of the roads on the heights, and the abutting roads to the heights, additional traffic flow
Yeah.
at that time is only gonna make matters worse on the current conditions of the roads. So without a traffic flow study, I'm pretty concerned. I don't have a problem with the park as it is right now. The traffic flow is a huge issue. And if you're adding the hours that the park is there, you've got definitely vehicles traveling those roads.
I mean, they drag race up and down the street year round.
Steve, you can talk about that too.
It's
I
New-
see.
You know that well enough.
Pardon?
Newton Ave,
I don't know how they make it.
I think
Yeah.
the residents on Newton Ave when you come down Newton Ave, there's 5 or 6 houses on
This
the
is
right.
all of us, we're all new
Yeah,
now.
so the 5 or 6 houses, 7 houses maybe, bear the brunt. The parking lot for the park technically is Newton Ave. Yes, to the use here, an overflow, the building's not open, but the main parking for the park is Newton Ave. That's where the pool is, that's where the playground is, the basketball court. They've had a lot of challenges on Newton Ave. You know, the police have been called, and the police can only do so much, and Newton Ave is a challenge for
Well,
sure.
why doesn't the city get in touch with the police? Like the other day, last summer, we had that back to school fiasco.
Oh, yeah.
We had
Parking
people
on our
parking
lawn.
on lawns, in front of driveways,
Where the
and
mailboxes.
the fire apparatus couldn't even get down the street.
Someone got hurt and the AMTs couldn't get down the
Yeah.
street.
I don't think that was a back to school night, that was the.
No,
Yeah,
that
it
was the
was.
back to school.
It was a welcome back or.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
If they would back in or drive in
Over one
instead
side,
of parallel parking, it might not be so bad because you've got that empty lot.
So, we're gonna focus on the lights,
I got another concern.
pollution, and then we're gonna move on to those, yes.
The trees, the pine trees are a gigantic problem. You could, after even a small storm, limbs are falling down, it's gonna hit someone. Our yard was destroyed 10, 15 years ago, we had a horrible storm and it destroyed our yard, it destroyed
From
our
the tree that
shed.
came from the park, over the fence, down into the yard,
Yeah,
knocked the shed, destroyed a car. Oh, yeah.
it's not good, and after every storm, I mean, we pick up probably 10, 15 limbs and we just
Right.
chuck them across onto the, non-residential spot.
And it went into our window, broke our window.
Yeah, it's just, why Newton Ave, that's another question. Why Keach Park? Why hasn't this been considered in another park? We'd like to know that.
So this goes back
Can
to,
I ask a different question, just
absolutely,
so I can get oriented,
Yep.
just so I can be respectful? Can you sort of describe for me where Newton Ave is, because I've only been in town for
Yeah, so-
5 years and I'm still learning.
on the south side of this map down here, left we have a picture of the map. If not, I can.
There you
Yeah, there you go. So this is the soccer field where we're suggesting the lights go. This is the basketball and soccer mini pitch, playground, and the pool. This little sliver right here is Newton Ave.
We
I'm
cannot
not
We
show
sure.
can't see that. You
Show
just
us
go up
that.
and stand in front of it, put your hand there.
I'm pointing, I'm using my mouse, and all of a sudden you can't see it.
Yeah.
Newton Ave, right here.
Thank you.
Pool, small parking lot, basketball, soccer,
And
playground.
Loudon is right next to your left hand there.
This is Loudon, and this is the proposed location that if we're gonna add lights, this is the field it would be at.
Thank you. I want to be able to feel for them, so
Yes.
understanding that helps me feel for them.
Right here, that's right here.
Thank you.
It's a dead-end street, sir. It's a dead-end street,
Yep,
so you can't get through the Loudon Road.
got it.
Real quickly, we're gonna come back to that larger conversation. Some folks are saying, why the airport? Why are we looking at the airport? The airport is close. The main runway, we come right over. This is where the group conversation, I don't have all the answers to. The scheduling of the soccer field, the increased use evenings and nights, potential for additional maintenance, and that goes trash, extra porta johns, supervision, the cost of the lights, turning them on and off, just the regular light bill if it gets installed. Parking and noise considerations. Part of this whole process, City Council would like us to come back with a facility use plan that does not get solved in one night. It's going to have to flush out. The challenges with Newton Ave is real.
But no consideration. When this was discussed, where were we informed?
This is the beginning of the discussion,
Why
so.
Keach Park?
Yep. So
That's an easy answer.
yeah, the Keach Park was chosen, it was changed for Concord when they wrote a petition in 2017. They advocated the lights to be here for the neighborhood kids to use.
So they're all grown up now, when this started in 2007.
There's still a lot of kids in the neighborhood.
But again, why Keach Park? That has not been answered. Nobody can answer that question.
Well, I think it's also Fisto with Chalmers here too, is there's a lot of new Americans, a lot of low-income housing, a lot of kids who don't have a lot of the ability to do organized soccer, organized baseball, and travel are right here, and it's trying to have those kids have and adults a good, safe place to play.
Well, quite a few of them have their own soccer teams, and they go over and practice there and play soccer. They don't mix with our teams or whatever. They do, it's constant there too, like that. It's two different, what would you call it? Immigration people, the youngsters, they don't mix with our people.
Well, I think the goal is.
They're not really, that's not the problem. That's not, it's the idiots that are driving up and down the street and abusing it. It's not the kids. It's the fools that are, just dealing drugs at the end of the street, just to be foolish, and that's a problem. Regardless of, even if this wasn't on the plan, it's a problem. And it's nothing, I've lived there 32 years and nothing's been done about that. And it's getting old.
They had,
And it's getting worse.
granite
You know what you just said?
slabs.
Yes, it's getting worse.
It's getting worse.
They had granite posts towards, the Loudon Road edge there, up at the park by the pool.
Mhm.
Those they destroyed years ago. They had granite put on the side of the road on Newton Avenue they would still go around those, and they had speed bumps. That's all been there, and I grew up on that street as well, and nothing really mattered. You got a nice sign that says Heights Playground there.
Mhm.
One day, somebody hit that sign and broke it. Do you think they called anybody?
It's just like, because it's trapped, Keach Park is trapped.
Mm.
You can't get out, you know. All the other parks have multiple access, multiple ways to get in and out of those parks. This park is trapped, and whether there was a park there, whether there's a park there or not, these fools are gonna keep misbehaving. You can't change that, so
You know-
why would we wanna add to that, you know? It's-
So I think, and I'm just thinking and talking out loud, and sometimes I get myself in trouble, as Laura knows back there, my assistant. I mean, if there was more of a staff supervision in the evenings over there, with somewhat of authority, city truck, whatever, do you think that would help?
No,
No,
no, because when there are events, it doesn't stop them.
Gotcha.
And even the poor lifeguards, they're babysitters, they, you know, they just babysit all day. And they, you know, one was telling me, I could write a book on the stuff that goes on during the day. And they said, you know, it's hard not to intervene, we gotta watch the kids swimming, nothing seems to work.
you know, you were talking about respect and everything else for the immigrants that are coming in. This past summer, they had a basketball, I think it was a basketball tournament, and they had a 4-foot speaker
Oh, yeah.
blasting their music. That's not called for a basketball. And then they just threw their water bottles all over the place. You know, that's why I'm against this. I don't care. I should have asked the people that live in the area first.
And I
We
think,
pay taxes, you know, the people that are using that park aren't necessarily taxpayers. You know,
That's going a little too far, in my opinion.
you don't, do you?
Hi, I'm Chris Schultz, I'm your city councilor, I have empathy for what you're saying.
You're one of the ones that are on this DEI bit too.
I don't
I
know what
watched-
the DEI bit is, but I
I've
can
watched-
tell you that the
I've
folks
watched
we're
the city
discussing
council.
are also our
Finish.
neighbors. And they're also our neighbors. The folks using the park, me included, by the way, are our neighbors. And we all pay taxes in this community, be it in the very high rents we're paying or through our property taxes. So I just, there's a point I'm concerned about when we make it about us and them. This is your park too.
That's
All of
right,
us
it is
want
our
you to
park.
have a role in this as much as the kids who play soccer. Just be careful because there's a line where it can become ugly and we don't need that here. We're a love your
People are
neighbor
making it that
community.
way.
I don't know who you people are, but you're my neighbor. And I care about you and what
No,
you're
you
doing.
don't. Obviously, you
Okay,
voted
well, that I
this.
can't fix, but.
so one of the things I think, one of the good things that the city council wrote into this project is we have to come in and then we have to create a facility use plan. We have to come in and hopefully address, even if the lights go forward or not, we have to try to address some of the Newton Ave issues and opportunities to improve. But we also have to go back to city council for them to approve moving forward or not. So this is the first public meeting that we have had on this project. And I think, when I said it's a couple meetings, I think it's a couple meetings because excluding the light conversation, this park has opportunities to improve. It goes back from the supervision of the people who are using it. The park technically is open till 11 o'clock. Do we change the orders and have it closed earlier? But then the police have to get enforced, and then the police don't have enough resources as is, and they're running around. So I think when we say a couple of meetings, I think there's an opportunity, one, to also improve and address some of the areas that we really need to address anyway, as we think through if lights are feasible or not. So, to me, it's a couple meetings. It's a dialogue. We'll come around.
Thank you, I appreciate that, and I'm also sensitive to the concerns of doing that as well. And I was gonna say, in terms of the facility usage and thinking about that exact thing, would it make sense at a certain point of the night to close off the parking lot in the nap so people are less inclined to drive cars back and forth through there? Because we do have another parking lot, as long as we make, if there's gonna be night usage, there's a safe pathway for people to make it from the other parking lot. And then things like, in thinking about that, would obviously inform other things that we want to do around the park to make sure that we have those opportunities for people to safely passage. I was gonna make one quick note on the back to school night. You should call the school district because they park the bus in that parking lot, which is part of the reason it
Wasn't the
takes
bus?
up a lot of space, because they want kids to have a chance to experience the
I
bus.
was part of the planning for the back to school night, and the number of families and kids who showed up exceeded their wildest dreams. They were thinking it was gonna be 100, 125 people. We had almost 1,000.
Wow.
When it was awesome, it was a beautiful night, a lot of families, a lot of kids, and came and got information from all the youth providers and family and mental health and everything. It was awesome. But if we're gonna do that again, it's gonna have to be done differently from Newton Ave, because it exceeded
Well,
their expectations, which is awesome.
their parking lot was full, but people were still coming in, and I have gone out and
Yeah,
told
yeah.
people about this parking lot here.
This was all full, Dudley
It
Street
was
was
all
full,
I
and
think if we
it
had a parking attendant, it would.
was awesome. It was awesome, but it was 100% a problem.
And I just had a second half, so also thinking about night usage and thinking about the neighborhood, one thing that we should consider is whether or not, I know that there's a question about like paid usage, unstructured usage, but if we wanna be thoughtful about how many people are going to be coming into the park at night, it would be a case to make the night, a little bit more of the unstructured time, so it'd be smaller groups rather than organized sports and large amount of cars, so those are important considerations.
Even some of the unstructured times, these guys have issues at night, even as it is right now.
Well, yeah, and it sounds like as is, I mean, these issues are not
Yeah.
about the Keach Park lights, these are
in general.
ongoing issues that we need to address.
We'll go 1, 2, 3 in order. You first.
Yeah, I'm a non-abutting concerned citizen. My concern is over the cost of operation of the lights. Most park fields are pay-to-play fields. They're not lighted automatically.
Right.
What I'm hearing is, this is not gonna be pay-to-play, and this will be lighted sunset to 11. Or,
Now,
no?
From a staff perspective, I would advocate we treat Keach Park just like every other park.
Yep.
You know, if a certain group's gonna use it, there's a fee, city
Yep.
council will waive fees, but they structured, we have a point person. If we have to close a field because it's wet or unplayable, right now, we call the league coordinator,
Correct.
who's in charge, and they cancel all the teams. Steve does it with his teams, softball in the back does it, you know, so I think it's important, it goes back to the facility use plan, if the lights are on, there has to be somebody in charge. And if we're consistent with what we do now, the user group is paying for the lights. City council couldn't change that relationship at any time. But when we have to close the field, or there's an issue, we as a city have some way of holding that person, that group accountable. So I would advocate that would be the continued way. We have to go to the Recreation Park Advisory Board, the chairs here. I mean, I would think they're gonna want some structure to make sure we have some accountability of
So basically what I'm hearing is, this would be consistent with the other pay-to-play fields.
That's my charge as it is right now under our rules and regulations, yes.
Can I get a point of clarification real quick? So the fields are pay to play, but aren't there other facilities in Parks and Rec that you can turn lights on that are not pay to play, like tennis courts and hockey?
So the tennis courts, there's lighted courts at Rollins, White Park, Keach Park, Merrill, and Rolfe. And those lights come on during our timer, and it's court lights, there's no, if they're on, it's a community park, they can use them. The only other fields that have athletic field lights are the fields at Memorial Field. And those are pay to play. Any city park, if a group reserves it, can use it. But if a park is not being used, it's neighborhood use. Like this park on Sundays, the Recreation and Park Advisory Board, I think it was 2016, asked staff not to schedule activities on Sundays here at this park for neighborhood use. So, unless it's a special event. So we do it for the Multicultural Festival, we do it for the Seacoast, we do it for the New Hampshire National Guard Day, they do stuff here. So on Sundays, this park is reserved for community play. It's not, there should not be groups who are charging kids and fees being here. It should be that we all grew up, we just show up and we play games.
My other concern is, it's in the hearing tonight, sounds like it created an attractive nuisance. And that aspect hasn't been addressed in the past, isn't being addressed now. But before you make any additional improvements, it needs to be addressed.
Agreed? I'm going down in line.
That's not
Thank you. My name is Fred Keach. I'm an at-large counselor. I have a special connection to the park. It was named after my dad.
Oh, wow.
There's a couple points I just want to make. I think we're talking about kind of two different things here. One is the use of the park and how it works in concert with the neighbors, and whether it works with the neighbors, opposed to neighbors, and right now it's not doing a really good job. That's one issue that's been going on for 34 years. Whether there's lights there or not lights, but that issue needs to be addressed. The lights, in all honesty, would probably make it worse, but it's going to be more of the same. So that's one issue. And that's got little to do with new Americans or whoever is in the park and not in the park. So being a good neighbor is important. That needs to be addressed. That's not being addressed. Second issue is lights. Do lights belong in this park? Okay, that's a whole different issue. I'm not sold on the idea that they need to be. It's a very expensive proposition for what would amount to 3 hours a night, maybe five months a year. That's an awful lot of money for a limited amount of time. My third point is, if lights were installed in this park, they would not be exclusive to this neighborhood. This field would be open to any resident of Concord. And it would be my position that if the lights were used, that whoever were using the field and using lights would pay for those lights the same way they do at any other facility in Concord. And I'm one vote on the council, but I would apply a consistent policy as we do to the rest of the city. And this park is not exclusive to this neighborhood. It's a city park and used by city people. So 3 issues. One, we need to be better neighbors, regardless of what happens going forward. 2, lights or no lights, that's a whole nother issue. And 3, recognize that this is a city park, not a neighborhood park, and not just exclusive to this neighborhood. And I think those are important points. But I will say, I think it's one of the more important parks in Concord because it does serve a population that do have less opportunities, mainly driven by economic reasons. And they have less opportunities to do different things, so it is a very important asset, and we need to view it that way. So parks are important. My dad had a really famous saying, he said, if you don't recreate, you incarcerate. And I can tell you, it's a hell of a lot cheaper to recreate than incarcerate. So, important issue, and it's important to everybody in this room, and I'm sure to the neighbors it's important. I sense a lot of frustration, and I get it. You live right next to me, but be assured that the city wants to work with you, and the kids that use the park as well. So, a lot of interest here at that, one at once, and I do think we can work together.
All the way in the back? Are you all set?
Thank you. No, I'm not all set. My name is Fred Hagedorn, and I live on Liberty Street. And I believe very strongly what the last statement was, which is that recreation is very important to our community, not just to the youth, but to the adults. And that we need to make sure that we have the opportunity in the city to make sure that's happening. Adding lights to the field allows adults to actually recreate during the week, which they would not be able to do with sundown. The second thing is that, to me, what this conversation is pointing out is that there's an important part of our city structure that's not here. There should be a representative of public safety here, making this part of the conversation, because community policing is certainly a part of the issue that the neighbors are describing, because there's behaviors that are inappropriate and need to be observed and curtailed. And that's what our police department is for. And so we need to make sure that that's being handled in an appropriate way. Finally, I have a lot of experience actually with lighted fields. For 29 years I lived in another part of the country where I built the largest competitive soccer program in the city of Chicago. And we use a lot of lighted fields, and you certainly should be paying for them. And there is no good reason not to have a computer that you can program that can turn the lights on and off on different days, at different times, in different ways. And so that anytime that you have bad conditions, you can just lock it off and turn it off. And that does not cost very much. It's a simple software program for these lighting systems. And it makes a huge amount of difference. But it should be pay to play. And you should be including into that pay to play the added maintenance that comes from being able to use the fields. Because non-artificial turf fields get run down very quickly, and you need to protect them and respect them. And you're talking about the right things. Those are the things you have to do. You need to come up with what those costs are, and then figure out what a reasonable hourly rate is for the additional hours that you're going to charge. But it should be the same rate during the day as it is at night. It should be a flat rate that everybody pays to help keep the park alive and well and safe. And, it is a city property. It's not a neighborhood property. And so you have to think about all of the citizens in the city and how we make sure that they get recreated. At the same time, we have to respect the people who live along the neighborhood side and live on a street that is a dead-end street that has a parking lot that kids use as a drag racing slot, and don't respect the neighborhood. And we need to make sure that the city makes sure that the rest of the city respects the neighborhood when they come to visit. And I think that we should expect, and that we should demand. And if that means we need to start looking at other parts around the park to find more parking, then we should do that. And if that means the city should buy some more land to provide parking, we should do that. We should respect the neighborhood, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do this, because we need to have places for people to recreate after they come home from work. But at the same time, I would strongly urge you not to have free time or playtime under lights. I think that open park time during daylight hours, where everyone can see everybody, is great. Having lights on where it's not planned has an awful lot of risks, and I've seen a lot of things go wrong with it. And so I would strongly urge you to not allow that to happen. So that means you have to have the computer system set up so you can control the lights and turn them off automatically. You don't have to have a person standing there to flip the switch.
We already have that. That's why we have the Musco. We're going to have to.
It doesn't add to your human resource cost to do that.
Right.
Thank you.
Hi, you're handling this very well, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate everyone's honesty, because I think that's healthy, and we do need to listen to each other. So that's all I'm in agreement. And I mean it genuinely, though. I do have a question about the lights. Has there been any consideration for solar lights to pay for it with sunshine? Maybe that's too expensive at this point, but is that a possibility at any point?
I look to our lighting consultant and that.
We have not done anything with solar, unfortunately.
So I think the challenge with athletic field lights is just the usage, the amount. You know, Musco is an international company, so they haven't figured it out yet. I don't think we will, but I think as we go forward with trying to solidify this plan, I think that's, we can go down that path a little bit and figure the pros on, so
Thank
that is
you.
even possible, I don't.
Thank you.
Ladies first, then Tony.
I'm Althea Barton, and I serve on the Recreation and Park Advisory Committee as a volunteer. I wanted to make a few points. One is that I was very impressed. On RPAC, we call it RPAC, we have talked about this issue, this project, a number of times, and we were always concerned that the lights would shine out over the edge of the park and into the neighborhood. So it was very interesting for me to see the diagram showing that it really shines just down over the park, and then there's that zero all the way around. To me, that's a good thing. Also, what I'm hearing is these issues of people misbehaving or doing things that they shouldn't be in the park, and then parking issues. So I wanted to ask David, we've talked a lot, even before the community center was open, when there were meetings like this about, you know, should the community center be here, should it use the existing building, how should it be structured, and of course that was a very high budget item in that year, and I know that parking, I believe, if I remember correctly, that parking was one of the areas where we felt we had to compromise. So we couldn't put in as much parking as we wanted to. There were budgetary limits. So we kind of used the parking that was here for the school. We have those annex parking lots. The parking situation was never fully resolved to accommodate the number of people that were expected here. I also remember in the first year or so of opening the community center, we didn't really know, would it be 10 people coming in every day? Would it be 100 people? Would it be 1,000 people coming in every day? So, and how many people would be driving versus how many people would be walking? So I think the thought was, let's not overbuild the parking and then have parking lots sitting empty. So I guess I'm saying that things are done incrementally, and it all really makes sense, but maybe the city is at a point where the whole parking picture needs to be re-examined.
I think, Tony, we'll go back to you in 2 seconds. When you look at this map, obviously where the old school is, on the right-hand side is Canterbury, that's where we're situated. The plan for this building at the time was to add a large parking lot basically from the building all the way down the side of Canterbury Road. Obviously that was significant dollars. Thea, you're correct, when the city made a decision to open, let's say, hey, you know, I think some people pointed to White Park parking lot, when it's busy, 2 or 3 hours a day, there's enough parking, but most of the time the parking lot's empty. Did we overbuild the parking lot? We can go back and forth with that. The conversation was here, let's get the building open, let's figure out the use, and then when we have to add the parking lot, Turner Group was here, they were part of the design, and the conversation is, then we can get back to city council, get design funds, and then look at adding the parking lot. So I think it's all connected, as you said. If you come here on Saturday, there's no parking. We'll be parking Dudley Street, J Street, overflow. I mean, couple hundred kids in here playing basketball and birthday parties and everything. Never mind, it's winter time, so the park's not open. So I think the conversation about addressing the parking for the neighbors is tied into also, do you do lights or not do lights? Because if you do lights, parking's gonna be an issue. If we don't do lights, parking's an issue. So I think that's very wise to bring up. It's good. Tony?
Thank you, David. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tony Chanella. I run the Concord, New Hampshire Patch News website. I'm not speaking in that role today. I'm speaking as a taxpayer, as a native of Concord, as someone who's moved back to the city 22 years ago, whose family has lived here for 117 years, as well as someone who's played softball on the Concord Co-ed Softball League now for 13 or 14 years, and was the commissioner for 5. Thank you, David, to you and your crew for all of the work you do. There's unbelievable work trying to organize hundreds of people playing softball, adult rec softball, between April and late August, early September. I'm really disappointed, and I feel terrible. Let me preface this to the Newton Avenue residents. I'm going to apologize for what I'm going to say, and I feel terrible for all of the issues that you're dealing with. But the lighting plan sucks, and I'll tell you why. This softball field is the best softball field in the city. We were not listed, and no offense to you, David, on your graphic, but is Concord Co-ed Softball League listed on that usage? It's not. We get to use it once, twice, maybe 3 times a year, mostly because there's a lot of soccer stuff going on. But in the earlier months, it's usually August 15th-ish, we lose Memorial B Field, we lose Rollins, we lose Keach, we lose Eastman, and that's playoff season, right? Okay. So as commissioner for 5 years, every year I get all the new players. The players have only been around a little while. They come in from Ashland. They drive from Concord to Ashland or whatever, and they say, "How come we can't play at night?" We can't play at night because the lighting at Memorial Field right now is $116 an hour. It's $75 an hour to have a rec staffer there to turn the lights on, and the game is for 2 hours for the field is $54. So we're booking hundreds of games in Pembroke. We have a free field in Bow, and we have all the Concord fields. We spend $1,500 a year for a $2 million indemnity policy for nothing that we've never. Has there ever been a claim, David, in 33 years against our policy?
I have not worked for the city.
There has not been a claim against our policy.
I'm not going to answer that question.
It's a small fortune. It's a lot of money. We're about to spend the better part of $400,000 on lights for one usage. And you're stealing usage from, and I know this because I audited all of our membership in 2018 and 2019. 80% of the people who play in our leagues, and it runs from 12 to 18 teams of 15 to 20 people on each team, up to 80% one year when I asked everybody, live in Concord. So we're already paying the taxes on this field and anything else. And again, I'm sorry, Newton Avenue residents, but if we're going to spend $500,000 on these lights, they need to be moved over so that we can use the Keach softball field at night during the time when we can't access the Memorial Field because the girls are playing. We have cancellations because of the flooding of Memorial Field, and I know you have a plan on that. I know you're working on it. I know you're working on it, but it could be years before we deal with the flooding at Memorial Field. And I can tell you, I spend hundreds of hours a year organizing that league. And with all the cancellations, everybody getting their games in because it's about $500 a team and whatever. Again, if we're going to, I'm sorry to say this. I hate to live in your neighborhood and have to deal with racing cars. Well, actually, I do deal with racing cars in the West End. So. But if we're going to spend $500,000 on those lights, they should be shifted over so that our league can rent that field. And the kids who want to play soccer can use it too. And I don't know what the cost is going to be. Maybe it's going to be a little bit less. But I know in Franklin, it's not $350 a game to play at night. It's stinky Franklin. And it's not $300-something a night. So that's my only piece about it. And the second thing is that if you do leave them on for 2 hours a night or 3 hours a night over a period of 5 or 6 months, it's going to be $50,000 or $60,000 a year, not including the maintenance on the grass. So, I mean, you have to. I mean, good luck there. Unless you can find that money to do it and reseed, you're automatically reseeding all the fields at Memorial Field anyway. So, that's probably built into your budget. But you're going to have to charge everybody for it to have the lights. And if they're going to be free, if you're not going to charge anybody, then I'm going to implore you to move the lights over so that we can use the softball field at $54 a day instead of hundreds of dollars a game. And that's, and lastly, I'll say this. I did a back-of-the-envelope estimate of our 33 years of doing business with the rec department. We have given this city, close to $200,000 in fees over that period of time to use fields that we already paid for as taxpayers. And I just, that doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean we get to have lights or whatever, or, but we've paid for half the lights over the 33 years of our organization. And we're not going to get used to these lights at the best softball field in the city. It's not right.
Thank you, Tony.
The fields that are there, they used to be used every single day. It's been in the last maybe 4 or 5 years. They had soccer games every weekend, and people would be coming in from out of state. Connecticut, New Jersey, Vermont, all these states. And that, every weekend. And then, of course, your Sunset Week had theirs, and then, of course, when it got dark, they walked out. But we didn't have all those problems, because there's an increase in the population and stuff. So it brings that with it, but when we were kids, the last person at the skating rink had to shut the light out. And it was dark. Over here, at the end of Robinson Street.
Yeah, we had a skating rink back here too, I've seen
Yeah.
pictures. Yeah, someone new is gonna start talking that.
Well, because if you're gonna reward the people that are hanging at the park now with $500,000 lights, then they need to put up. The police need to patrol that area a lot more. You just put in that soccer field over there, 2 days after you put that soccer field in there, they're over there banging and chewing it up. You put new garbage cans over there and they're over there kicking them around. We don't need more lights in the park so they can shine in our windows, number one. Number two, it's not just bringing in who's in Concord. Because last summer, we had a huge problem with people parking in front of our houses. We don't get our mail. They have no respect. I'm picking up, sorry to say, condoms out of my backyard. And whether that be from the gatherings that happen or just the group that hangs out over there, but they show no respect in that park whatsoever, and you're gonna reward them with lights so they can hang out in the park even later. I'm sorry. They need to get that road and the traffic under control before they can bring more people in there. It's a huge problem, and it's not gonna happen until, that's the only park in Concord that you can drive right up to. Every park in Concord, you have to park someplace else, and then you have to walk to the park.
Most of the parks have, this is the only one I had a street.
That goes right up to the
Most
park.
of the parks have parking lots, but this is the only.
The only one that drives out there, and they don't respect the road, they don't respect the neighborhood, and I was told by a kid, because there was no speed limit sign on that road. They can drive whatever they want.
Anything else?
Hold on, just so you have your hand up.
I did. I'm gonna stand up. Thank you so much for hosting this event, this meeting, and I'm very appreciative of city councilors who are here, new city councilors. Thank you so much for coming. Also new to this city, been here for about 8 years now, and I think that there's people who've been living here for longer than I have. I hope that we all want same the city, and we want to see respect, and we want to see diversity within our community, because this city doesn't belong to one community, it belongs to every community, everybody who lives in it. And we want to kind of show that respect. I'm thinking that when the council approved the amount of money for these lights, it should be up for construction, and I think that the fact that you were sent a proposal to start construction, I don't think that I don't think you were asked to find out or figure out whether these lights, whether we have lights or not. That condition has already passed, and I think the city council has already approved it, and I don't think it would be appropriate or respect to people who worked so hard and people who showed up, more than 500 people advocating for lights. I don't think that would be respect to reconsider sending back the proposal to the city council to talk about it again. That to me, it's not appropriate. I have respect to y'all. I think this campaign, this proposal, whatever, this project has started a long time ago, 2017, and y'all knew about it. And I see some people who showed up to some of my events who are here who never spoke up. To be honest, I'm respecting you so much, but I think the things that are being talked about, the words that I'm hearing right now, and I'm trying to be honest, and I appreciate the city council who are here. I don't feel safe.
Well, I can tell you that.
Let me finish. I have respect for you, but you're not going to speak over me. Okay? This is my time. I would respect you, but I want to respect you. So, I would want to see us to moving forward to construct the lights that we have asked for a long time, and I think that many people have showed up. The city council has records about this, and whether they need lights or not, whether they want lights or not, I think the problems, the issues that they're bringing up, you should have talked to the city council about it. You should have raised those issues long time ago. This is not the place to raise those issues. I don't think it was part of the conversation. I don't think that was a question that was asked. And I don't know what that means when you say these people, who are you talking about?
We're talking about residents on Newton Ave that were not notified regarding the lights.
No, that wasn't.
Well, then you're gonna call her a liar and.
I'm not asking the question.
I'm gonna circle back just 2 seconds. Okay? This is the first public meeting the city of Concord has held. Okay? So, city council last June approved this statement. Right? This statement is having public meetings, getting public input. All the residents got official letters from the city, like we always do for city meetings, for projects. Better than others, we send everybody a letter to make sure you're here, okay? So when we look at this statement the city council approved, we do have to come back with cost estimates, we do have to come back with a facility use, we do have to listen to the abutters, and we do have to report back to the city council. City council decision. I'm here to try to navigate the task that's going to be charged to see if there's a way to have everything work together nicely. Parking is a huge issue, trash is a huge issue, noise is a huge issue. Dealing with the 33 years of lack of respect for the residents living in Newton Ave needs to be solved too. So I think when I started this off, this was going to be a couple of meetings to figure out what is really possible and to try to figure out how we address the local abutter issues and concerns accountability wise, to make sure the city doing X to solve what's going on. At the same time, we work with these three gentlemen, the Recreation Park Advisory Board and the Airport Advisory Board, to figure out what is possible, and then report back to city council for their final review.
Can I finish up then?
Yeah.
So basically, you're kind of figuring out the process. It's not the fact that you were asked to bring back the proposal whether the lights should be on or not. Whether the construction should happen or not, right? So it's to figure out the process, right?
It's the,
I might be able to clarify.
Yeah.
So if you look at that CIP 51, this capital improvement, there are literally 100 or more of those in our budget. And we identify capital improvements, different projects in the community that we think are important, that possibly should go forward. This hasn't been funded, so it's not going to be built until the council appropriates the money. This has been identified as a want. This seems to be like something that is worth looking into, a want. You obviously, it's more than a want, but this is the beginning of the process. So these capital improvements get bounced all over the budget. Sometimes they're 4 years out, 10 years out. Sometimes they're 10 years out and they get moved back to a year from now. So it's kind of a fluid process. So this is the first step in the process. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It means it's in the bigger plan, and it's a might happen. But ultimately, the bottom line is the money has to be appropriate. The council has to say, yes, we want to spend the money. But this is part of the process. And as David mentioned, the process is gathering input from the neighbors, gathering input from the users, gathering input from traffic, parking, just all the elements. So it's not a done deal.
So to put it a different way, you had success last year in getting this taken from the not on the table to be talked about at all, to being officially on the agenda of the city to think about funding. So the success you had was in getting it so that it is now on the agenda to have money spent on hiring the consultants to come up with the plans and to have these public hearings to be able to get the thing approved. But it's not approved to be built yet. The money has not been put aside to do it. The only money that's been put aside is to study it. Now we have to win the battle of being able to get it to be done. And that's what this is the first step towards. And as frustrating as that is, that unfortunately is the way every city works. And I commend you on getting it off of the back burner where it's sitting over there not being talked about to having public hearings is huge. And I congratulate you on getting that accomplishment. But that was the first step. This is the second step. The third step is getting all these things figured out and then bring it back to the city council with a recommendation to do it under certain circumstances and getting that to be passed. And that's what you need to work on next. And that's what I need to work on next. Because I think this is an important thing to do for our city. At the same time, I think it's very important that we solve the problems of Newton Avenue that I did not know about before tonight, but I do now. And I'm going to become a big advocate for them because I have a big voice and I'll talk to everyone about it. And, we need to make this happen. But we need to make it happen for the city and for the adults as well as the kids. And for those of you who've not been on modern lit fields, I can tell you that the lighting only spills out about 20 feet and then it stops. And within 10 feet of that, it's pitch black. And so there is no real spillover. There is no light shining into your yard. There's a glow, but there's no direct light going into anybody's yard. This will actually be very, very good for the neighbors in that regard. But the problem will be, it will become a magnet for members of our community come and recreate. That means that there'll be more traffic, that means there needs to be more parking, and if parking isn't in the plan, it needs to be added to the plan. The community policing needs to be added to the plan. These are things that need to be part of these hearings, not just the recreation part, because it's an integrated issue for our community. And if anything comes out of this conversation, it's that it's too narrow a conversation, and we need to get the other parts of the city here to participate in it, so it becomes an integrated solution.
So just to clarify, if you don't mind, I saw you at a very good time, but the only problem I have with what's going on, first of all, I think it would be inappropriate to consider just 2, 3 people or 5 people, whatever, I don't know how many people are here, as the voice to whether we have lights or not. You know what I'm saying? That's the first problem I have with this. Second is that now people who uses the park are considered as a threat. I'm trying to bridge the gap. I'm trying to work with the police. Now police are considered coming in to protect the neighborhood because of the users. That's a big problem. You should be considering this conversation as something that is not, we're not building the community. We're not bringing people together. We're actually tearing people apart. Now I understand and I know that we have such a people in our community who can say this such a things in front of our leaders. And I would want our leaders to take their responsibilities and see what they can do about this. I'm working so hard to bring people together, to bring organizations together, to work together, to bridge the gap we have in this community. I think if I was, just my opinion, if I was leading this meeting and this is how it's going, I would shut it down immediately and educate people of how to talk to each other, how to talk about everybody. So I'm saying that, yes, lights are beautiful for everybody. Yes, we have responsibility to educate people how to respect everybody in the neighborhood, whether they're using, when they're using a park, we have to engage in that kind of conversation to see how they can use the park respectively and see who might come, who might bring the problem or who's the problem when the park is being used. Whether they have lights or not, you're still going to have those issues you're mentioning. So you need to advocate for those issues. You need to stand up and speak about those issues. Lights are not part of that. We already have one mini pitch soccer field, whatever it is, that has lights. You haven't spoken about that.
Have you looked down there?
Is there?
Can I ask you that? Do you hang out with that park?
Can I finish?
Do you hang out with that park?
Respect, we cannot finish. I'm not going to allow you to step from that. I'm trying to get you, because I do work with you directly, I do work with the city council, I'm trying to show you how I feel about this meeting. If you want to engage different communities in this kind of meeting and talk about the things that we need in our city, you need to consider how we talk about everybody. We shouldn't even accept this kind of conversation in such a meeting. We're trying to bring lights for kids in our city, for everybody to use, to make sure our city is more safe and more inclusive. And now we think that the users are threats. This is not allowed. I'm just going to respect you. I had to say that, but I'm trying to make sure you consider that in this conversation.
Part of the conversation this evening is Newton Ave has had this issue for 33 years. They did not say anything, and I apologize if I misheard, anything about race. You've had this issue for 33 years, and the city has not addressed Newton Ave issues.
No, there were instances of race that came up, so I want to make sure we don't overlook that. If there was language that came up in the conversation in references to DIG.
And people
So
stood up
let's
and
not-
spoke against that, so let's just move on.
Yeah, but let's not say that didn't happen. It's important to acknowledge it did.
So, and I don't care if there's a counselor who spoke up, Crystal, you spoke up. Part of the conversation is having a conversation about what is in task for us today. The issues you guys have brought up about Newton Ave are real. That's part of the solution add lights or not, right? The task about putting all this together, going back to city council for their approval, has been there since last June. Through conversation, through a common understanding of making sure that people that feel comfortable about speaking their mind and being respectful and being honest is important, hands down. This is the first meeting of several meetings to build that consensus and that understanding of what we want to do at Keach Park regarding the lights, as well as you said, public safety should be at the table if there's all the issues going on that aren't being addressed in the past. So it's a conversation that, as long as everybody's respectful and everybody can push back a little bit when it's uncomfortable, and we all walk out here understanding that that was a healthy dialogue, and we're not taking a point of fingers at each other, we want to improve things, I think that's a win. So, it's uncomfortable. But the challenge and the task in front of us for this CIP is trying to bring the community together, the voters, the users, the politicians together to figure out how do we make a decision that's going to work for the community to add lights or not. And this is the first public meeting. There has been other meetings, and James for Concrete got organized, and that petition in 2017 was awesome. The kids standing behind, and then it was presented to the city council. But we have to move on this together in this conversation. So I appreciate everybody's honesty when things are uncomfortable. We spoke, council said it too. The conversation has to continue if we want to try to make this project move forward in some capacity. So, I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, we probably want to have another meeting. And it's probably a meeting on the abutters regarding the issues you guys have faced for 30-something years regarding the inappropriate behavior of all the users on Newton Ave. That's probably should happen before our next public meeting, because that, if we can solve some of those issues in a tangible way, you may feel different. Right? Is that, from the abutters? We still have to go through the design piece and the electrical piece, and we still have to figure out if there's any FAA issues, if there's any fish and game issues. That's part of the process. Our consultants here will help us walk it through. That has to happen.
Dealing with the Newton Ave issue a little bit more, without going into a lot of detail, I'm going to ask an open-ended question, which I do not expect an answer to, but one that I think might help that conversation. Is it possible that some of the people who are showing up on Newton Ave and doing things are not technically users of the park?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so it's not the comments about what's going on along the edge of the park, is things that are going on along the edge of the park, where the park is an attractive nuisance in the sense of there's nobody there watching them, so they can show up over there and do stuff. And so some of the comments that may be coming from the neighbors when they're talking about their issue, it's not actually talking about the adults or the kids who are playing in the park or utilizing the park from a recreational perspective. It's talking about the people who are showing up on the edge of the park and doing their deeds, whatever they may be, whether it's drag racing, drug stuff, or just finding a quiet, dark place where they can make out. And all of those things are important, and all of those things are issues. But I think that when you have that conversation, you need to be open to the fact that it's not just the users of the park. There's parking problems that have to do with the users of the park, but there's other things too. And so you need to look at the whole thing, not just the little thing. And I think that helps to explain to you what some of the comments are that are coming from the neighbors. They're talking about all of their issues, not all of which have to do with the users of the park, but they are having to do with the users of Newton Avenue and the parking along the park and Brew. And so you need to hear that as a broader perspective, not just about people talking about who's coming and playing, because it's a bigger issue. Thank you.
Steve?
Just wearing two hats. My parents still own the house at Exchange Avenue since 1958. Both of those roads used to go through, and maybe you can't answer this question, but on the Loudon Road side, does the city still own those roads? Because can you bring a parking lot in if the city still owns those roads? On Loudon Road?
I think they're discontinued, but I can ask.
Because you could put a parking lot on Loudon Road to help out Newton Avenue, or you could bring the road in, and I can't remember
It's the oldest.
the auto.
Yep, I know exactly where
That road, that used to be a road that went straight through the park.
Correct.
If you still own it, maybe you can put a parking lot on that end, so it alleviates the
That's a
problem.
good idea.
The other question is, now my sense of the account has been running for 32 years, we pay $116 to $125 an hour. So if it's gonna be free here, it's gonna be free for us. And the men's softball league went out 30 years ago because it was too expensive to use the lights. And that's why we can't use the lights at Memorial Field as much as we used to. So, and that's a pretty big nut if somebody wants to turn the lights on there at $125 an hour.
I'll touch the light issue. I think the good thing about Musco and 21st century light, that can be controlled with a computer. I can actually control the mini pitch thing on my phone if I have the app down. They're very, very efficient, and they'll cost a lot less.
But you still need a person there.
No.
Yes you do. You need a person at the facility if there's a problem. And it's $75 an hour, as did Tony Lee, like Tony said.
The opportunity, it goes back to the facility use plan.
Yeah.
Currently, Memorial Field, with the lights you use, we have a staff person there for a shift. If you're using Sunset League and using White Park, we don't have a staff there, because you're in charge.
Yeah.
So, the question for the group, question for the Recreation Park Advisory Board and City Council, if you have those appointed reasonable people who are renting the field or in charge of the field and I turn the lights on and bulb or whatever, and there's an issue, you're in charge. Or not. Then we have a separate issue. That goes back to a facility use plan that Keach Park is one of 27 different park locations that I administer. All the way up from Wells Park in Pennacook, which is the largest park the city has at 46 acres, all the way down to Green Park with 1.5. Some of the issues, unfortunately, you guys bring up, we have major issues at Wall Park. Regardless, public is equal to you. Up until now, the rates, the process to rent a field, paying for lights, it's there. You know, and I think if that changes, that's up to city council to change. I'm not advocating for change, but there's going to be a cost. Now, if it comes back and Muscle Lighting's over here and says, hey, these new lights are $5 an hour, well, that'd be a different conversation, but group's going to say, why can't the city pay for that? But it's probably not going to be that. But that goes back to a facility use plan. And our rental processes, they're listed online, our rules are listed online. I think I would be concerned if we create something different here that's not similar to other city parks. But that's just but I'm here to listen, I'm here to be challenged. We're gonna go down this path together and we're gonna figure out what's possible. I'm gonna wrap up pretty soon, but.
Thank you. Just having been present for all the conversations about Keach Park lights going back to 2019 and having been a little bit involved even in 2017, I do think that the momentum and the request was about someone structured time with Keach Park lights. the whole reason this request came up was from that frame of intent, so I want to be very cautious about having the city just sort of look past that and not look at what we'd call the legislative intent and the conversations that led to the passage and adoption. I also read this, and I think this is why our friend Pisto and others, you'll also have some confusion tonight, that this is approved, this is in the budget for this year, the plan, design, construction, and it's just about getting the preferred design concept and facility usage plan. That is certainly the message that city councilors who passed this gave to community leaders, including Mayor Belay, Mayor Byron Champlin, and others. So I do think that there is some community confusion about that, and I would be really thoughtful about what the community was promised and what they were told. This public process is extremely important to come to the answers around those pieces, but the perception and my belief in reality is this is supposed to be moving forward subject to that final approval because it was approved in that past budget. The second part is it says community groups and other interested stakeholders are supposed to be a part of this process, and I'm curious, did the city invite all of the individuals who signed the petition for Keach Park lights? Because I've seen a very small room, and I assumed when I got here that was because people assumed this was a done deal and this was just about those pieces. Now I'm wondering if maybe it's because people didn't have that information.
The petition didn't have any contact information, it just had names, there was no email addresses, phone numbers.
I'll provide contacts if you don't mind.
No, there was one just in the last, yeah. And I know that I got
The one in
contact.
2017 is the one I have.
Yeah, I definitely got contact info on the one that I was sent as a counselor, so I do think that exists. So we can just make sure that those folks are contacted for the next hearing, I think that would be great.
Two more questions, and I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna try to wrap up.
I want to comment on the CIP process. And all it is to put a green light to the administration to start working on a project. It is not approving a project.
Correct.
It's approving the administration to start working on the project. So if there's a misperception out there that the council approved this project, they didn't. What they approved was the green light to the administration to start working on the project.
What we're doing, 2 seconds, what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Our vendors are right here, they're designing and they're trying to figure out what's possible with the lights.
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving forward with trying to figure out operational costs, how deep the footings are, FAA, power, we're moving forward with the design, okay? The piece that we're focused on today is the new nav issue that you have, and the butters have to be solved. But it's also the facility use, it's the beginning of the conversation regarding how we're gonna use the facility, who's gonna be here. So, to your point, we are moving forward with what this says regarding getting all the questions as asked to the city council together, hopefully in a consensus, and hopefully everybody, 90% of the people will say, yes, hey, at the end of this, we're good, to report back to city council for their approval. So we are moving forward with the design, permitting, everything. But we still have to work on the rest of the questions that city council has asked us to come back to. So this is the first city meeting.
So has it been approved or has it not been approved for those lights?
I think the way that.
It's been approved, so now we said it's going to
The way this gentleman said it was, the city staff had a green light to start figuring out all the details of it, right?
Yeah.
And so the final plan is not approved because there is no final plan yet. They have to come up with all the details on the usage and all of that. Cost.
So after they're all done planning, then they're
It
going to
goes
put
back
up
to city
lights.
council. It goes back to city council for actually approving the project. This is approving that the city staff should be working on the project. Should be figuring out the project.
This is the beginning of that, yes.
Or stated another way,
I
they've
meant it
approved
goes
it.
back to city council.
Yes.
Yeah, they've approved, the city council approved the design and construction. They haven't approved the final plan.
Well, let's use the, if I may, let's use the clubhouse at Beaver Meadow. Everybody's
Can we not record this?
Well, no, let's use it because it's fresh in everybody's memory. Is that was, the city staff was given a green light to develop a plan. And it came back to city council, and there was a lot of concern over that. And during the public hearing, Mayor Boulay made a motion to recess that public hearing. So the city council did not approve that project as designed. This project is going through that same process, where it is in the design and planning phase. Because you can't just snap your fingers and suddenly have a capital project happen. There has to be design, planning, there has to be feedback from the community. And so that's the process we're going through right now. It's the process that every capital project goes through. Mr. Washburn was a long-time city councilor, he understands the process. That's how the process works. It's not a sleight of hand. It is the way that any capital project that is going to be paid for by the city progresses. And this is just part of that process. You know, I think that to speak to former councilor Bryce Hawkins' point, the intent of the city council when it voted on this was to have it move forward. And was to have it move forward, you know, in response to the call for lights. But it still has to go through the regular process, and that's what we're going through right now. And as David, I think, has articulated very well, this is the first step in that process.
One question on the back, Councilor?
Yes, good evening, Jeff Flip, 92 Shawnee Street, East Concord. Thank you, great job. I love the comment about coming off of Loud Road. I was thinking the exact same thing. But again, I'm thinking out loud as Mr. Gill initiated before. I've been through this process before. And the big thing for me when I went through it is I've worked for another community, and we went through this process and we added lights, but the hours used per year didn't change. When you introduce an artificial field, and I go to Tony's point, is do we make this multi-use and have like Trinity? Has anybody been to the Trinity field in Manchester? So that field is a soccer field, and it has baseball accommodation, it has softball accommodation. It's more expensive, but you're gonna get your biggest bang for your buck when you build the field to accommodate the longer seasons, as was first mentioned. So when I did this in another community, adding the lights, the field usage for the year didn't change because you have to take that field offline more often than you did do with an artificial field. What we saw was when we introduced an artificial field with lights, the usage went from about 1,000 hours a year to 2,700 hours a year. So the big component of this is not the lights. From my experience, maybe I'm absolutely wrong in Concord, but the big bang and the most beneficial way we're going to increase the use in this field is to prepare the field so it can get more use. That's just me from.
Nope, maintenance aspect is huge, but yes. Okay, I'll be respectful. Ladies first, Tony.
I have a question for the engineers in the room. You've said FAA a few times. I worked for the military for 20 years, and I did construction and design, and we hired you guys quite a bit. Are these lights going to beat FAA when because we're in the approach zone? Everybody knows that. That's what you. And also, there are red-tailed hawks. One nested over the Stefano Pond last year, and we've had one. So just add that to the other wildlife. And there's there's lots of bunnies. But there's lots of bunnies. I think they're coming from the airport, but we've got one under our shed, and so. And I know how much of a pain environmentalists can be. So.
So we have to go through all the process, the fish and game and wildlife and all that.
Because I know, actually in general, when I was there, we had a lot of issues trying to, walk. Well, I was gonna say that, but I didn't want him to have a heart attack. We're not far from that either.
Yeah, but we're far.
Yeah, so it goes back to, I think, what the mayor said. I think this is the process that we have to do for any project that's going to involve new map issues that have been going on for decades. We need to improve that, but we also need to address the field lights, the field conditions, do we have parking? Parking's already a challenge here a lot of times. So as part of the process from the official public input is having meetings to discuss, vent, come to consensus, put it in a paper, hopefully get it to city council, and it says, I removed it, and approved. Okay? So this is what we're doing in a healthy, hopefully honest environment, and I think it's important to be respectful. I think it's important when things are said that make people feel uncomfortable. We say it and we stop it, we move on. So, from a next step point of view, am I hearing you guys correctly that I need to meet with Newton Ave folks and exchange.
And maybe add a light at the end of Newton Ave.
And try to wrestle with your several decade worth of frustration that has gotten worse over time. The city, we did this park in 2004, and before 2004, this was a wasteland. Sand, grass didn't grow.
It's the heights, it's all dirt, it's all, it's all
This is the best grass in the city now, because of that 2004 investment. But I need to work with you guys to figure out how we can solve.
Is that gonna be a public hearing to?
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
Not like
no, but I think we have to get all the neighbors, we have to get the police officers here and say, hey, what can we do? You know, and maybe it's a parking committee, and we don't have parking on the side of the street, we guys have houses. I mean, there's probably several different options. And the second piece is just to have, once these guys move along, is to have a continued meeting, another meeting to talk about what the lights facility use would look like. Because it goes back to what we've been charged, the city council wants to know what a facility use plan is. We cannot have a grass field 24/7, 7 days a week for 9 months open. We've seen we've done it. I have some pictures over there of overuse, we aerate, we hydro-seed, and even when doing that, the grass field is not going to survive 8 or 9 months of use if it's drastically increased. But it goes back to the facility use plan. It goes back to an agreement, you need to shut fields down, we need to aerate, we need to seed. When we do that, I love the idea of a turf field, but that's not part of today's conversation. But, so, I'm gonna schedule two more meetings. One is with you guys, we have a public meeting, I'll invite the neighbors, and I think we'll have another date after that to continue the conversation about a facility use plan.
May I request that the meeting with the Newton Ave folks be at the next RPAC meeting? That way you can to listen in and be part of that conversation, since that's the larger conversation. But also, those are pre-existing concerns that probably should have gone through RPAC before at this point.
I don't think that's an RPAC issue. I think it sounds like it should be the police officer, like Dave said, to try to have a community meeting with these folks with community policing.
Oh, they're high safety on that.
I don't.
Well, I don't know though, because like if you thought about I don't think about it actually as park use changes. If the biggest issue is people speeding up and down the street.
No, it's everything.
Well, lots of other things, but if
Trash,
that's one of the things, then there are some other fixes that the park system could do.
I think that for me as the director and being respectful to one RPAC, because I know the next agenda is already huge, is having a public meeting posted with the neighborhood, have the police here, and we have three RPAC members here. This is going to have to go to RPAC anyway, even the initial project, this goes back to RPAC. So I think the issues, I'm talking too much. From what I'm hearing, the issue that Newton Ave are having is crime, it's drugs, it's skating, it's loud, the noise ordinance goes out the window. Some of that has to be at least addressed with the police department. And then I think we have to go to the RPAC, because they are in charge for the city council.
Last year, they had that big basketball tournament down there that was not Concord. They came from Massachusetts.
That wasn't even permanent, that just showed up.
Correct, right, Correct, so where do you go from there when you put the big, or if the big lights come in and it's not even city use? Where?
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
If the lights are tied to permitting, that gets solved, because the lights don't turn on unless there's a permit. To the question earlier of, who's in charge of the park at a particular moment, from my experience of having done this for 10 years in other parts of the country, the permittee is responsible for what's going on in the park, that they're permitting that space of for that period of time. The only time you need to have a park person there is when you do what the former councilwoman said, which is have that free time that's open. If you're gonna have time that the lights are on, that is not permitted by a group or a specific person who's hiring for their family to use or whatever, then you need to have a park person there to manage that space, because then you have multiple people showing up trying to use the park, and they need to be able to share, and not everybody wants to share. So you need to have someone there to sort of help guide sharing. But the rest of the time, you should not need to have a park staff person there for 95% of the time that you have lights on, because the lights should only be on for someone who's actually paying for them. And let me tell you, $200 a night for lights was not unusual for me to pay. You had $200,000 over 33 years. I used to pay $200,000 a year in permitting fees for fields. Of course, I had 55 teams that I was having practices and everything else.
3 million, Chicago was 3 million back then. 3 million.
But the fact is that this is also, those are all problems that are solvable. The issue is overuse of the field needs to be carefully taken care of, which our gentleman who's leading us is so right to be concerned about. Turf fields are great, but they have their own problems, and they're very expensive to put in, but they last a long time. And they probably cost less over time than trying to reseed all the time. But let's take this one step at a time. We have an opportunity to increase recreation in the city. We have a park that is well suited for it. I feel for you're wanting to have the softball field lit, and maybe we should talk about that too. But let's make sure we do have an open space like a soccer field, which has multiple uses that you can have. So thank you so much for this. I'm going to be at every single meeting because I'm going to advocate to get this thing done because it's really important for our city.
Thank you, and we can keep on talking, but I'm going to wrap it up. Is this conversation overall has been good. I think there's an understanding of better understanding of some of the other concerns. I think there's an understanding regarding the process that we have to go through to go back to city council to get it approved. We are working with a contractor. We are getting it designed. It's not like we're not designing it, because we have to design it to get back to city council. Okay, so this is all part of the process to make sure when we get to city council, and I say we, it is you, it's all your groups, it's everybody else. When we go to city council, hopefully we have a flushed out understanding that we go to city council and we're going to automatically get them to say yes, so there's no issues, and it's all worked out. That's ideal. So what I'm going to do is thank you for coming tonight. I'm going to call a meeting with you guys. I'm going to do it publicly. I'm going to post it. I'm going to mail you guys a letter. I'll make the police department here so we can talk about those issues. We're going to continue down the path of designing it. That's what we have to do, operating costs and everything else. And then we still have to, and then second public meeting, maybe I was a little optimistic, maybe it's 2 more public meetings. But we have to have another public meeting to start bringing people together to get an understanding of what it's going to look like from an operation and facility use plan. And if it ends up being 2 more meetings, and the product is better, and everybody builds consensus, then it's 2 more meetings. It's important to have the process and have everybody input to build an understanding for the support to move forward. So that's my promise to you guys. I hate stay and talk. The vendors are here to stay and talk. appreciate coming out. The dialogue has been good, lots of answers are not answered, a lot of questions are not answered. I need to go home, so. Anyway, thank you.